Good morning and welcome to the first quarter moon in Cancer. This first quarter moon is taking place during the Aries lunar cycle, which started last weekend on March the 29th, and it was with the Aries solar eclipse. And we talked a lot about the eclipse energy and how Aries stands for new beginnings, new sparks of creativity within our own self-development and within our world of all the things that we want to create. And last week was really about driving those things in, working with our communities, working to ground in our values of what we felt was important. And it brings us to this first quarter moon. And first quarter moons in the week 2 of the lunar cycles are all about developing awareness of how we're going to improve upon our efforts. How can we protect what we're building? How can we put up some boundaries? How can we really hone in on our efforts and find stronger ways to make them integrated into our world so that we can start to bring them to the table? And like I said, right now we're working with the Aries lunar cycle. And next week, when we get into the full moon, it will be in the sign of Libra, which is paired with Aries. It is the opposite sign of Aries. And we are just coming out of all these eclipse energies as we just finished that last eclipse with Aries. And this will be the first full moon in Libra that's not tied to an eclipse energy. Over the last 18 months, I've touched on that before, but I'm going to stress upon it again now, because what we were working with over the last 18 months, while we were coming up with new sparks that we wanted to create and new changes in our worlds for a new chapter, we were also working on ways in which we communicate and interact with other people in a way that is supportive for us to bring balance into our world. And so we're really working on integrating those new ways of communicating and partnering and relating with others while we're taking action to go after our dreams. So when I tie that into this week with the first quarter moon in Cancer, Cancer is all about how we can mother ourselves, how we can nurture ourselves, how we can protect what it is that we're trying to grow based on our sense of feeling safe within that, feeling safe that we are capable of doing those things, feeling safe and trusting ourselves that we can move past any limiting beliefs that we have or any old storylines that we have in order to do so. And that's what this week is really going to be about. And so with the first quarter moon in Cancer, it's really going to help us to decipher what is feeling good for us and based on what it is that we are creating. And with the sign of Cancer, we really look to our environments. We look to the environments where we go when we are working. I mean, that's more of a different energy, but it does support that Cancer. And do we feel safe in the areas that we're working? And when we bring that home, does our home environment feel safe to support us? Do the people that we live with support us? And how do we feel when we bring up these ideas that we're working on to other people when we are being supported? Does that feel strong? When we are not being supportive, how does that feel internally? How does that sometimes mess with our insides? Does it make us feel anxious and uncomfortable? And does it, in my case, really give you some physiological responses that show you what feels safe and what feels good versus what doesn't? Cancer energy, like I said, teaches us to mother itself. It teaches us to look within and to feel our own reactions in our own bodies based on other people's responses to us so that we can sort of be like when our children come home to us and talk about their day and what didn't feel good, where we can sit there and give them the space to talk about that, tell us how it made them feel inside, where they were feeling those feelings inside, so we can start to build that trust within ourselves. So I really want to focus on, as I'm looking at my notes and we're going through this, are there any fears or are there any storylines that are holding us back from evolving? Not just what we're creating, but also holding us back from being able to practice these new ways of communicating and these new ways of relating to people that we have started to integrate over the last 2 years, really. And so with that, there may have been a lot of changes to relationships and partnerships. There may have been endings to relationships and partnerships. And at eclipse time, and certainly in my case, people come back, right? And situations come back. So as I'm going on this beautiful journey of creating all these things that I want to create, I am finding that there are some tests happening where people are coming back into my world to really test, what have I learned? What have I taken with me? And how have I learned to feel strong and supported within my own? How have I managed my own ways of regulating my emotions and allowing that to shift into my physical experience? So for me, I'm really tied to that. My emotions take hold of my physical experience. They give me physical symptoms in my body that I can attribute to hormonal shifts, and I can also just attribute it to major transitions and changes in my world. So now that I have these situations coming back, and I'm really trying to hone in and focus on all the beautiful things that I'm creating in my life, with my family, with my work, in all aspects, in my friendships, how am I going to manage, and how am I choosing to manage all these other things that are coming back in, so that I'm not overwhelmed by them, so that they are not taking precedent in my life, and that I'm able to really be in touch with myself so that I can take myself forward, and giving people the compassion and the understanding that they are in different places, and that they may in fact have my best interest at heart, but it might not resonate with what I feel my best interest is at this time in my life. So what boundaries and protective measures can we put into place to allow us the space that we need to grow and to transform? That's up to us, right? That's up to us and what we're moving through, and how we're going to be able to really see that it's worth it, that we are worth it, that we deserve to go after our dreams. We deserve to go after the things that we think is possible, just because other people's fears or beliefs in us, or what they think that we are capable of, might not match that. I don't think that that's something that we are supposed to allow us to hinder us and hold us back. I think those are cycles that we need to evolve and transform. So this week we are going to move through Cancer over the next couple of days, and that will take us into Leo, where we'll be able to practice the way that we are expressing ourselves and expressing what we feel most passionate about, what we feel most passionate about creating. So really honing in on that aspect versus going back and sitting and allowing feelings of insecurities or feelings of fear to hold us down, and to temper our excitement and to temper our self-expression. The Leo energy that will take us through the middle of this week is really about how can you be authentic to yourself, and how can you share these gifts that you're working on, these ideas that you're working on, out into the world, so that people can see what you have to offer, and you can feel loved and admired and respected for the things that you are putting out there. And from Leo, we'll move into Virgo energy at the end of this week of this cycle. And the Virgo energy is really about how can we now start to integrate these things into our daily practices, into our daily routines and our schedules, because we have started to take action on the things that we're creating. We're now practicing how we're going to hold that, how we're going to protect ourselves from the things that may not be supporting that, how we're also going to nurture ourselves and our environment to support the things that we want to move out into the world and continue to work on. So by the end of this week, when we come to Virgo energy, we're really looking at how can we take care of ourselves from our self-care perspective and our mental health perspective, so that we're able to not only build our dreams, not only integrate that in, start to integrate our actions into our daily environments and our schedules and our routines, but do so in a way where we're still capable of managing our own health and managing to take care of the people that are dependent on us, the people that we work with, the people that we live with, our children, our pets, all of that. And it's really about how can we find a way to transform and transmute any energies that are, I'm going to use the word toxic, but there's, any energies that are not feeling right, that are not feeling good, and that are taking away from your resources of time, money, energy, emotions, so that you can really put them through in moving your stuff forward. And that will take us into next week, which will be that full moon in Libra, which will happen next weekend. And that will start to, show us how we're showing up in our relationships now. Next weekend is going to be Easter, and it's going to be Passover and other holidays. And so it is an opportunity to show up with family and friends and other things, how we are moving in with all these changes that we've made, especially within changes between our relationships, be they with family or friends or whatever it is, partnerships in the world. There is opportunity coming to work through that. So how can we best hone in on that this week? How can we take all the sparks that fed us last week, the energy that was really coming up to the surface, so we could start taking action on that, start to network, start to form our values, and this week really learn how we can protect that and stay strong in that while we're shifting through past storylines, other people's limiting beliefs that they may have on us, and all of that. So that next week when we show up in that full moon, in that accountability phase, and other people are showing their accountability within what they've been working on, we can feel really good about where we stand with ours. So I encourage you to get in touch if you want to learn more about how following the lunar cycles can truly transform your life and really give you some transformative growth in your world. You can find me on Instagram, cycle_points. You can find me on YouTube at Cycle Points, and you can email me at cyclepointsplanning@gmail.com. And I would love to talk to you more about how these cycles move. Till then, until next week, take care.